Dance Moms was one of the most popular reality TV shows of the 2010s. It followed dance teacher Abby Lee Miller as she coached her young students in her Pennsylvania studio. And as the title suggests, it also follows the dancers' mothers and all of the drama that comes with being a full-time dance mom. There were arguments, but also happy moments. However, despite it being extremely popular, this did not mean that it was met without controversy. And several ex-students of the dance company have since severed their ties to Abby, who was once almost like a second mother, saying that the teacher had left them with lifelong trauma. In today's video, we're going to take a look at the show and what made it so successful, and also what led to its fiery downfall. Dance Mom's first episode aired in July of 2011, and we saw the process of Abby Lee Miller training her students up to then travel to various competitions each week. However, even though the girls at the studio were extremely talented, Abby's teaching style was found to be very questionable. She would aggressively shout at the girls, some of which were only 7 years old, and belittle them, and even famously said that she had a talent for making kids cry. Another one of her weird antics was called the weekly pyramid, where Abby would gather the girls together and rank them from worst to best. This also showed her favoritism towards certain girls like Maddie. The other problem with this was that whoever was on the top of the pyramid would usually be given more solo dances and all around receive more opportunities to shine the next week, whereas others would not have the option to prove and redeem themselves, leading to some girls being constantly pushed to the bottom of the pyramid. The show was extremely successful in its first few seasons, especially because the moms would get into tons of drama. They would argue over whose child was better, then argue with Abby on why certain kids were being favored. This would all then build up over time and lead to huge fights that sometimes even got physical. So as y'all can see, the show thrived mainly because of the competitive aspect and also because of the behind the scenes mess. But then in 2017, the trajectory of the show took a huge turn. As it was thriving and at the peak of its popularity, Abby revealed that she was at the risk of going bankrupt. This shocked both the moms and the viewers watching, since no one could fathom how Miller could be struggling financially while the show was doing so well. It turned out that Abby's big announcement was far from the truth, since she was later arrested on 20 counts of fraud. Abby had hidden $700,000 worth of her income from starring in the show, as well as failing to report $120,000 worth of Australian currency that she had brought into the country. The future of the show and Abby Lee's beloved studio was in a completely vulnerable state, and many of the moms decided that they would be parting ways with the dance company, most notably Melissa Ziegler, who had been known as Abby's closest friends throughout the show's history out of all the mothers. Abby was sentenced to 8 months in prison for her crimes, where she said both the other inmates as well as the prison officers treated her terribly for being a celebrity. But having to scrub dirty toilets all day was the least of her concerns, because while Abby was serving time, she began feeling extremely physically unwell. Despite mistreatment from the officers, she was finally allowed to see a doctor for her symptoms, where she was diagnosed with a rare and aggressive form of spinal cancer. Following the devastating news about her health, Abby was released from prison early, and she went through chemotherapy as well as emergency spine surgery, which left her unable to walk. One of the worst things about this as well, you guys, was that even though Abby was at the lowest point of her life, all of the friends and co-stars that she had been working with for the last 6 years had vanished and refused to see her. There was only one of her students that showed their support, and that was JoJo Siwa, who went to visit her while Abby was staying in the hospital. Eventually, Abby thankfully beat her illness and equipped herself with a wheelchair in order to get around. And to surprise of millions, she announced that the 8th season of Dance Moms was set to be released with a fresh new cast of students and dance moms. The show started to pick up the pace that it had lost since Abby's arrest and the departure of the original cast. But Miller's redemption didn't last long, as she faced another huge scandal in 2020. On May 25th, George Floyd was killed by racist police officers, and a video of the attack went viral all over social media, which caused a rise in the Black Lives Matter movement. On June 2nd, millions of people participated in an event called Blackout Tuesday, where people posted a plain black post on their Instagram feed to show their support for the movement by making it the only visible content on Instagram. Abby was one of the many from all over the world to make the unifying post to her profile, but it left a sour taste in the mouth of one of her ex-castmates. Adriana Smith, the mother of Season 8 dancer Cameron, took to Instagram to share some moments that she had experienced with Abby, exposing her for being performative and racist. A statement from her that sticks in my mind to this day during my time on Dance Moms Season 8 is, "I know you grew up in the hood with only a box of 8 crayons, but I grew up in the country club with a box of 64. Don't be stupid." The following day, another mother from the show decided to back up these claims by exposing Abby for treating her daughter differently and creating a hostile environment while her daughter was on the show. Camille Bridges told E! News via email that Miller tried to spin Cameron as being the poor one and there on a scholarship. She would say the most terrible things on camera. It was a traumatic experience that I wish on no one. Abby was now in the eye of the storm and issued an apology to the ex-castmates saying, "I realize that racial insensitivity can come not just from hate but also from ignorance. No matter the cause, it's harmful and it's my fault. While I cannot change the past or remove the harm that I've done, I promise to educate myself, learn, grow, and do better. While I hope to one day earn your forgiveness, I recognize that words alone are not enough. I understand it takes time and genuine change." Even though she made an attempt to rectify the situation, Abby quickly learned that just because you have freedom of speech, it doesn't absolve you from having to face the consequences of what you've said. And on June 5th, the day following her apology, Lifetime announced that they would be permanently pulling the plug on Dance Moms, and that it would be cutting all ties with Abby following her racist remarks. So that's how the show Dance Moms went from being a Lifetime Network staple to another tainted competition show. But that leaves one big question. What has happened to all of the little girls that became TV stars all those years ago? Well, pretty much all of them have washed their hands of Abby for several different reasons. So now we're going to take a look at why some of the original cast does not support the woman that gave them their careers. Maddie Ziegler was always known as Abby's favorite out of all of her students. She was constantly placed at the top of Abby's pyramid and treated with a lot more respect than the other girls. Maddie even ended up famously being scouted from her time on Dance Moms to be a dancer in the music video for Chandelier by Australian singer Sia, while the show was still running. However, when the news broke that Abby was facing time in prison, Maddie's mother Melissa told Abby that their relationship had come to the end of its road. Maddie has said in an interview with TMZ that she has not spoken to her former coach since she left the show back in 2016, and she is completely at peace with never speaking to her again, continuing on by saying that her reasoning was due to the toxic environment that she was placed in during her time on the show. Abby responded to this by explaining how she put her job on the line to get Maddie booked for the music video that would make her a household name, and that she was devastated at the news that Maddie was cutting ties with her. Maddie has since been mostly known for appearing in multiple music videos for Sia and attending events and red carpets with her. She also had a lead role acting in Sia's controversial film, which was criticized for the way that it portrayed people with autism. But besides that, Maddie herself has stayed unproblematic, along with her little sister Mackenzie, who you guys probably know now for being a huge TikTok star. Another star of the show is Kendall Vertes, who is known for constantly being in competition for Abby's favorite, as well as making several attempts to having a successful music career, and also for her mother Jill's crazy antics and arguments with the other moms. Kendall cut her ties off with Abby as she explained that while the cast was well accustomed to Abby's insults, she was allegedly way meaner when the cameras weren't rolling, and Abby would comment on the girls' bodies, saying that they were fat, which obviously left Kendall, as well as many others, with self-esteem issues. Kalani Hilliker arrived at the show a little bit later than her castmates in 2013, but since leaving the show, she has put more focus into a career in acting rather than dancing. She starred in a romance film with Noah Centineo back in 2018. However, in 2020, Kalani faced a ton of backlash when she was pictured with a Blue Lives Matter flag, and stated that she was going to be voting for Donald Trump when he ran again for president. And ever since this point, her career has been on a steady decline as she hasn't landed any roles as big as her her debut. It's clear to see that even if you've watched Dance Moms from when it was airing, there was always a feeling that Abby's teaching methods were a bit more than unconventional. But after its past stars have revealed some shocking truths about the real Abby Lee Miller, the chances of the once hugely successful TV star redeeming herself from her past actions is going to be nearly impossible.